I've never given JavaScript a whole week.
I mean, if you discuss only the good parts, it doesn't take that long.
What is that?
What?
So sounds like I'm not really the Blazor hater on this podcast.
No, I was talking about JavaScript. Doesn't need a week.
JavaScript.
JavaScript, the good parts.
Oh,
Small
yeah,
book.
Okay.
The complete, unabridged JavaScript big book.
I would do TypeScript if I had the choice, but I mean, I guess it's got the fact that it's not Blazor going for it. Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. The stupid gate.
We are live, just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
and welcome to the Six Figure Developer Podcast, the podcast where we talk about new and exciting technologies, professional development, clean code, career advancement, and more. I'm John Calloway.
I'm Clayton Hunt.
And I'm John Ash.
It feels wrong right now. I got to get used to it again. Okay. Sorry. With us today is Michael Jolley, with nearly 20 years of experience designing and developing software. Sorry.
Hello.
I can't talk. Yeah.
It's okay. Take your
Was
time.
that the end? Was that the end? Yes, I am, Clayton. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Breathe. Designing and developing software. Michael loves sharing his knowledge with others and watching them excel. You can watch his live coding sessions on Twitch and presenting talks at conferences and meetups. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me, John and Clayton and John.
You can call me Ash. That's what everyone calls me. So Michael, before we kind of get into the meat of things, would you maybe give our listeners like a little bit of introduction to who you are and like how you got started in the industry?
Yeah, sure. I actually started not trying to get into tech at all, really. I was working at an industrial distributor in Birmingham, the big metropolitan city of Birmingham, Alabama, and was actually doing, I think I got moved up to like an office job, and they had just gotten computers like 6 months before, and basically got tired of the mundane work. And I was like, you know what, there's got to be a better way. So I started doing like JavaScript. Excuse me, that's not right. VBA, like to automate Excel and Access. And started, it started going well. Everybody was like really interested in that and just started progressing in that and started building like little Access applications with VBA. And then people started approaching me on the side like, hey, you work with the computers. You know how this works now. Can you build me a website? I'm going to be a millionaire. And so my first like real projects where I got like literally paid to write code were people just building websites to do aircraft sales and everything else. And
Wow.
And then from there got a job like over a little IT group. It was a small little SaaS company who had like one developer. So at the time it was like, an empire of one, but started doing that and, transitioned into, VBA was a great starter for VB. And that was really before C# was out there. And then once C# came along, I gotta say, I held on to VB a long time. So spent about 10 years at that SaaS. Went from, I gotta tell you, when I started there, it was wild. They were running everything on a FoxPro database. This is a web-based SaaS, okay? FoxPro database. They had the great idea. They had like these like social profiles, like Facebook or something. But imagine like your about me text. If you, rather than saving that text that you customize into a database, imagine saving it onto the hard drive of the server with like your account number.txt. And anytime someone goes to your profile page, we read that text file. We don't cache it. We go read that text file, and heaven forbid you're trying to edit it at the same time somebody tries to read it because the file's locked. They hadn't built customers in like 3 months at the time. It was pretty insane. So got to work with, moving that to SQL, started getting into like voice XML. They started doing some crazy stuff, moved over to C#, and then spent about almost 10 years doing custom software development. Left there, helped start a custom software development shop here in Birmingham, and got to work with some really cool clients like Coke and Harley Davidson, so some names you would know. And then went from there, started streaming about almost 2 years ago, about a year and a half. And just within a couple months was just sold on the whole thing. I had a couple of friends who were in developer advocacy for Auth0 and Particle. And they reached out and were like, dude, you should really look at kind of transitioning to this other field. I mean, not to bash your skills or anything, but you're good at developing, but you're really made for this other. So I started. Matter of fact, I never heard of developer advocacy. I was like lone developer, right? Who has spent like 20 years as a developer, never went to a conference, and by never I mean never went to a conference, never went to a local meetup. In fact, didn't even really know they existed until I started doing Twitch streams. And then I realized, oh, hey, developer advocacy is a thing. And hey, there's actually these conferences. I mean, I knew like about build and those sorts of things, but no place I ever worked for was willing to pay for me to go across the country to one of those events. But yeah, got into it that way, and slowly over the next 6 or 7 months made the transition into DevRel, and the world has been paying for it ever since.
So what do you think, how do we get a hold of the U's before you knew about developer advocacy? Like, how do we reach those folks?
I think right now is the time to reach them because they're all at home. They aren't locked away in their offices anymore. They're all using Zoom. They're all doing things. I've gotten so much feedback from our Twitch community saying, the biggest thing we love about, the community you're building on Twitch is the community of it. They can't go to the office and talk to their friends, around their water cooler or anything. So it's an outlet. So it's a great opportunity for us to snag them, let them know, hey, this is available for you, right? We have these Discords, and we have these Twitch streams, and we have YouTube videos, and we have these really cool user groups, and bring them into that, right? It's hard to reach that person if it's not out there. So, and I would say all those things, user meetups, all that kind of stuff, those have certainly gotten louder in the last 3-4 years. I mean, I never saw like, I'll give you an example. I never really saw like Hanselman. Everybody in this world in the .NET, you talking to you fellas, you're all .NETers, and you can't be bothered to not .NET, and that's why you love Blazor so much. But every one of you, I bet, has Scott Hanselman on your Twitter follows, right?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. We all, worship at that church of Hanselman. So, but you didn't really see like Hanselman talking about, hey, I'm at this, whatever con, or I'm talking to this meetup, right? A lot until the last couple of years, he's kind of done that. And I think it's been across the board. Like everybody's talking about that more. So people are like, hey, what you're at the Philly.net meetup. What is that? I'm in Philly, and now that they're all online, it's more accessible. So I think it's a matter of talking about it, getting people that, I don't care, even if you're the lone .NET guy out there, you're following Hanselman, so having people like that everybody's kind of watching, talk about it, that's great exposure.
Cool.
Was that long enough? I think I reached my word quota.
It was good.
Yeah, I've got some family members that have some health issues, so we've been in isolation for many months since the beginning, and I discovered the live streamers and the live coders, the people doing the software development on Twitch, sharing their experiences, interacting with the community, interacting with chat. Having a healthy ribbing from chat members and things like that, and so that's where we like to poke fun at you about your checkered past with Blazor, but I find that it's really beneficial to have that on and have that same outlet that we might have had or that might be missing from being in an office and working with coworkers. So I've really enjoyed that. And I know that you share a lot of the projects that you're working on. You do a lot with Vue. You speak a lot about TypeScript. You'll be doing a Blazor week upcoming later this month, I believe.
It's in December, actually. Well, it's November 30th. Yeah.
Okay.
Starting November 30th, but it's really December. Yeah.
So how do you decide what to work on? Is it what you think your community would enjoy, what the chat would enjoy, or is it you come in with projects already, you know that you want to work with Vue, you know that you want to work with TypeScript?
Let me tell you right now, John, I could care less what this chat wants to do. They're a bunch of trolls. They send me, like in my mail, I get things like fart candles. People like that don't deserve a voice in this community. The honest answer is, it really depends on the outlet. So, I mean, I stream on the Bald Bearded Builder channel, right? And then I'm a developer advocate at Vonage. So I stream on their channel at least once a week. I was on there this morning. So it depends on the outlet that I'm doing, and it depends on what's on my to-do list, right? So I can tell you, like, I stream every week, 1 day a week for Vonage devs. Every single one of those streams is building some kind of project with our video API, which is what I'm a developer advocate for. And then every one of the repos that we build on those projects are pretty small. And I take those repos and then create a blog post out of it, right? So it's all feeding content on those channels. So I've got my topics planned 2 months in advance on that channel, because I know, hey, I need to create these blog posts around these times. Hey, this feature's coming out, so I need to be ready with that. And so that's how that feeds that. In regards to the BBB channel, it's funny because Wasabi Dev is in chat and says that I never come in with a plan, and he codes by the seat of his pants, he said. Let me tell you, this is a great work of ours. If I have no skill at all, it's making it look like my plans were no plans at all. Because I actually have streams planned out through the end of the year. I know exactly what I'm doing on the BBB streams every single time I come on. The trick, I guess, is making it look like, hey, I just woke up and, you're lucky I've got pants on. Let's figure this thing out. What, you want to write some TypeScript? I need type safety in my life. Look at me, It's very much planned, and it normally is planned around things like either stuff I have to do at work. If I need to do a project that uses something specific, I work around that. If I've got a personal blog post I want to get out that I need a code repo for, do that. A few weeks ago, Martin Woodward with GitHub gave me access to code spaces on GitHub. So it's been kind of planned, like starting, I guess it's tomorrow. This week, we're doing GitHub code spaces, which isn't like publicly available yet, right? So it'll be kind of an interesting topic to learn how that works. And I've given a lot of talks on developing inside of containers. So it just kind of flows in that whole genre of, it works very similarly. Blazor Week, that whole week of content, we are finalizing the schedule. That's a little special because we'll have some special guests coming on, like Dan Roth is going to be there on Monday. I thought we were going to have Jeremy Ligness, but it looks like he is going to be on vacation, so he's finding a suitable replacement. We got some really cool guests coming up that week to talk about different things. Sometimes you have sponsored streams, right? So like Azure has sponsored a few streams, and it's like, okay, so guess what we're going to be doing on that stream. So it's always like planned ahead, right? But you try to, it's one of those things where for Blazor Week, let's take that for an example. Every day that week, we're going to be building a certain application in Blazor. But I wanted to be as green as possible. I played with Blazor earlier this year, but only for a couple of streams. So I can tell you, I've forgotten every bit of it. So I'm trying to stay away from it so that while I know what we're going to work on that stream, I'm coming into it green, not knowing how to do it. So the first part of that first stream is going to be Dan telling us who, what, why, where of Blazor. And then we're going to get into the documentation and start with getting started and, do it from scratch.
So
is that something that you do with a lot of the topics, where you basically have the topic planned out, you have a rough idea of what you're going to try to do, but you really want that native, like, real discovery to be just sort of be a part of the actual stream that you're doing?
It's a mix. It's a mix. So last week we were working on a Twitch chatbot for our channel, right? We've done that project several times, different ways. We did it one time in like a microservice architecture with like 12 services running in Azure, and we did one that was all serverless. We did one that was in C#. We've done it in TypeScript. We've done it in JavaScript. Same project, just different, ways to tackle it, right? So when we start those projects, I know exactly what we got to do. It's just doing it a different way. And I think there's real value in being a little more of a polyglot and doing it different ways and learning the different thought paradigms along with that. A lot of it, like we were talking about Vue earlier. A lot of times there's like these holy wars of, do you React? Do you Angular? Do you Vue? How dare you? But I mean, I'm really a big fan of learning them all, because there are like thought patterns and little like processes and paradigms in each that are very valid. And a lot of times it's just like different ways to skin a cat, right? But a lot of times I'll catch myself writing something, maybe just in vanilla JS, and think, okay, how do I want to solve this? I'm like, if I was writing this in Vue or if I was writing this in React, I wonder if I could do something like that. And, it's just really, it's beneficial to do it that way, I think. And so it's a mix. So some of those I know, some like code spaces, I kind of know. I mean, I do know how to develop in containers. That's all I do. Mm-hmm. But I'm specifically not even trying to learn code spaces because I want it to be green. I
mean, doing the polyglot thing is a pretty good thing. But now that we have Blazor, we don't need anything.
You're a typical .NET developer. Listen. There's a joke. Okay, so I decided one day that I had heard enough about Blazor from all these .NETers, who this is. I decided to record a trailer. Like if you were going to go to watch a movie about Blazor, the trailer goes something like, "In a world where .NET developers can't be bothered to not .NET, this fall, coming to an IDE near you, Blazor." I think the tagline for Blazor should be, "When .NET developers can't be bothered to not .NET."
I mean, when you got one language that does it all. See, I was roughly 5 years ago. I was really into JavaScript, so I left .NET and I specifically looked for a front end only job. Mm-hmm. It was really bad timing because that's when Angular 2 was coming out and React was coming up.
Oh yeah,
it was confusing times. It was like being in college and not knowing, do you like girls or do you like boys? And so
I don't remember the choice of Angular and React being near that difficult, we remember those front end decisions very differently, Clayton.
Yeah, well, I get real serious about things sometimes. But like I ended up going with Angular and doing TypeScript, and I feel like I regretted just about every moment of that. And then Blazor got announced, and I was like, salvation! I can be free.
Yeah.
I actually thoroughly enjoy vanilla JavaScript. Like I really like programming in vanilla JavaScript. But it's almost like vanilla JavaScript doesn't exist anymore. Like you can pick multiple frameworks, but you gotta learn a framework, at least one, and then that's what you do. Like jQuery developers back in the day. You don't, like, they didn't do JavaScript, they did jQuery. Well, now you don't do JavaScript, you do React, or you do Vue, or you do Angular with TypeScript, or so Blazor is actually kind of like bringing the sanity back to me, where like I can just do C# and everything will be okay. I
think unfortunately that's what a lot of .NET developers are going through. Like, I mean, with surprise, we went from C# to Angular, you know, written in TypeScript. The same guy who wrote C#, you know, of course it felt, and I'll be honest with you, when I moved over to more JavaScript stuff, I was in that .NET world. You know, I grew up with, you know, God forgive us, classic ASP and web forms, and then graduated to MVC, and went into Razor. But then there was that point where, you know, even Microsoft said, you know what, yeah, about that front end, you know, here's some templates, React or Angular, you know, have a good day to you, sir. Just use us for the API. And I think most .NET developers went with Angular because they were using TypeScript there, and it looked very similar. They're like, oh yeah, I know what an interface is, and hey, classes, you're speaking my love language, you know. So I think a lot of developers went that way, and it feels weird to not have that type safety.
Yeah. See, I went towards React and have spent the last several years in React and really enjoyed it. React being the front end to my .NET Core Web API backends, because that was what .NET and C# was for the last several years. I actually tried to put together some training materials, tried to put together a video for Angular 2 when release candidates 1 through 37 and breaking changes along the way were coming out, and just got so frustrated with that mess that switched over to React and never looked back. But having spoken with those that use and enjoy Vue, it sounds like Vue was what Angular 2 could have been as a follow-on to Angular JS.
Yeah, so I never did Angular JS. I came into it when Angular 2 was like in beta, and lived that nightmare. Actually, we were building a customer project in Angular 2, and then, you know, you'd come into work one day and, oh, hey, thanks for the npm installing. By the way, the router's completely different. You know, and that was a rough year. I'm still looking for the people who designed that release process so I can throw punch them. But I think it's gotten more stable after that release, right? I mean, they released, like, you know, they spit out new releases of Angular like, you know, rabbits, you know, mating. It's crazy. But I would say, so I don't know Angular JS, but I can tell you that having learned Vue in the last couple of years, I've heard a lot of people say that, like, it's more like Angular JS. I couldn't tell you that, but I can tell you, after having spent years in Angular world, or Angular 2 world, right? Vue is much simpler. It is much more straightforward. It's much more beginner friendly. I think you can have something up and running a lot faster and a lot less boilerplate. The thing I like about Vue is it's like Angular Lite a little bit. Like, you don't have to have everything that you do in Angular to do something, but it's also like a little bit like React. Like, if you just want like one little thing on your page to be a component, you can do that, right? I mean, you could just make like a little component of just Vue and plug that in somewhere, and the rest of your site can be whatever you want. They all have pros and cons, but you know, I think Vue makes those people happy for sure.
And before hitting record, you had mentioned that you enjoy Vue, you enjoy TypeScript, but you haven't done Vue with TypeScript.
That's right. Yeah. So Vue 2, you can use TypeScript with it, but you can tell it's very much a secondhand citizen. Whereas, like, if you go write Angular 2, you can tell the thing was written with TypeScript. It just feels weird to use JavaScript, just vanilla JavaScript, with Angular 2.
Well, they got rid of it. Like, you might still be able to hack it in, but they dropped documentation support for it.
Yeah,
shortly after release.
Yeah, it's a hard road to plow. But with Vue, Vue 2, that's the way it kind of seemed for me with TypeScript. Like it was a hard road to plow. Like I could do it, but I got to bring in all these things and change all these configurations. It didn't feel as natural. And I'll be honest, I mean, React is supposed to be much more TypeScript friendly. I write that in JavaScript too. It just doesn't feel as comfortable using TypeScript there. Vue 3, I've been using Vue 3 here for, I don't know, several weeks. It's better about TypeScript support, but I don't think either one of those have gotten as close to Angular is, as far as just feeling like it's a TypeScript world that I'm living in. You know, it's
having spent the last couple of years in the React space, if you want examples in React, you're not going to find them using TypeScript.
Yeah, and the same way in Vue. Yeah, you feel like to use TypeScript in either of those, you feel like you're kind of bending the rules a little bit. Like I'm doing something custom just by using TypeScript. You know, it's not like I built something custom that I'm really like trying to like bend this framework into my will. I'm doing what they tell me to do, but it still feels naughty, you know. But there's some animals out there that like that, you know.
That's what my team does, is actually TypeScript with React.
That explains a whole lot, Ash. A whole lot.
But let's just be honest. I'm the Twitch troll here. I'm actually a plant because I just went into DevOps, and all I do is YAML files and Bash scripts and PowerShell scripts these days. So.
Yeah, I love that life. I love DevOps, and that's why I love developing in containers. I was talking about earlier. It's that stuff's really a lot of fun. But yeah, you can do it. You can do it. And that's, I'll say, there's a lot of like, everybody's like, you hate Blazor. I don't hate Blazor. I'm dedicating a whole week to Blazor in about a month. The thing about with Blazor, and this is, I've explained this on stream. Here's the deal. And understand, I am one of you. Okay, stop trying to crucify me.
One of us.
Yeah, I'm one of you. I'm living that .NET life. Listen. If you think about how like Microsoft brought developers into the web, they said, oh man, it's really hard for these guys because they're all writing this WinForm stuff and they're used to state. Well, guess what the web doesn't have? State.
Yeah.
So they said, you know what? Let's make something that feels more natural to them. We'll make a WYSIWYG IDE and we'll just build state into it, and web forms was born, and we got this view state that sends back everything on every post, and developers moved to it. It was really simple, but they didn't understand how the web worked. They said we're going to post back, but they didn't understand that's an HTTP post. They had no idea that get existed or put or delete or patch or any of that. They didn't understand how the web worked. They just felt like it was the same as WinForms, right? And then somebody had the amazing idea of ASP.NET MVC, which to me, when that came along, it's like, hey, I dig this because it felt like I was getting a little closer to the metal. Right, like I now understand how the web works. Hey, there's some gets and some AC, all this kind of stuff. And then I think it's kind of been progressing that way. Like they're taking it closer and closer to the metal. And that's my only concern with Blazor, is I'm afraid they're going to abstract away so much of that. Like, because listen, I mean, you all know. There was some pretty janky stuff in web forms.
What you talking about?
Post back 10 meg post backs. Matter of fact, I even with MVC, even when you got a little closer to it, I remember debugging an app somebody wrote. It was an order form for a pipe manufacturer. Okay, and these order forms can have hundreds of lines on them. Let's just say 100. So they had an online ordering form that would show those 100 lines. Well, it was kind of slow to load. So I go in to debug it. They're using Entity Framework. They're using MVC. And it was just MVC. There was no, I think they used jQuery. for the JavaScript to make it interactive.
That's where they went wrong.
No. Here's where they did it. Listen, that page I found out was hitting the database somewhere around, I want to say it was like close to 2,000 times for that one page load with 100 items.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, because they had done they used Entity Framework, but they hadn't used includes. So they were bringing back like a list of the order details, but didn't include the order, and didn't include the account off the order, or the ship to location or the build to location off the order. So every time they were hitting one of those line items, they were doing these calculations that this little I forget the name of it now, partial view didn't know the context of the whole. So every time it's pinging to get that account. They had like in a for loop.
In their defense, at least they separated all that out from one giant table. Because I've been in that application too.
Yeah.
Pull everything back in one table. It was very
relational. Yeah, no, it was very relational. It was very relational. It was great. But I mean, just the simple fact of, hey, maybe don't even include that in the payload. Maybe stop using sales order detail dot sales order. Maybe just go get the sales order. And then you don't have to even bring it back on every detail in the payload or the account. Hey, why don't you just go load the account one time, and pass it into the partial because you could include it, right? You could say, go get it and include dot sales order and include dot sales order dot account. But then that data set, they didn't put together that, hey, that means that data set coming from the database, every row now has every row plus every account, or that account plus that order, it's god awful. There's no one needs to live like that.
Yeah, the last 10 years of my career have been going into places and fixing the sins of the past of the people that did that thing. Yeah. So I think the next 10 years of my career will be going in and fixing the mistakes that the early adopters of Blazor will be implementing.
That's my concern. Because with web forms, we abstracted so much that it made it super easy to screw things up. And MVC did the same, but I mean, like, MVC was less abstracted. So you kind of had an idea, hey, I hit this get, I go get that thing. I go hit this get with an ID, I go, whatever. But that's my only concern with Blazor, is that it abstracts so much that it makes it a lot easier for people to not understand how the web works and how those payloads kind of,
I think that'll be more of a problem with server side. I think with WASM, it's not going to be as big of a deal because if you want new data, you have to do an HTTP call. Yeah. So you're not abstracting that network interface at that point. Now, the people developing may not be familiar with the network interface, depending on their background. But at least you're having to make that call to get that data, and you're hitting an API. But with server side, it's much different because you're just like, oh, it's like the database is right there. I'll just go get stuff.
Yeah. It makes Blazor doesn't make you write bad code, but no language does, right? No language can make you write bad code or good code, right? A lot of people are like, I'm gonna, listen. I tried that once. It burns when I PHP. I have learned that, like, a lot of people are like, TypeScript, it'll save the world. Types will save us. Type safety is wonderful, but it doesn't make you write good code. You can write garbage regardless. And listen, hey, Dan Roth is going to be the first guest on Blazor Week. If anybody can sell me on it, it's Dan. I'm just not. I just haven't seen. I don't have a use case for it. The only use case I can see for Blazor so far is it makes it easy for .NET people to do the web.
Yeah, Dan certainly
use case.
Yeah, Dan certainly does have a lot of enthusiasm, and it comes through when he's speaking about Blazor and about many topics. So what can we look forward to in? You said you've got programs already planned out through the end of the year, including Blazor Week. So what can we look forward to coming from you on your stream?
Well, I can't tell you. Then it would be like I planned it, and people will think, oh, he knows what he's doing, and
wreck the whole system.
Yeah, did you just miss the whole illusion part of this conversation, John? I mean, thanks for catching up. Glad you could join us today. No, like I said, we're doing code spaces this week. That'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, they say in chat, don't look at the man behind the curtain. You don't want to see how the sausage is made, John. You don't want to see it.
You don't have your curtain up, so I thought this was
true.
a
I
safe.
don't have it. Yeah, that's true. I don't. I see we're doing code spaces. I would have to go look. Right now, all my attention, honestly, is on Blazor Week. That is going to be super ambitious. It's one of the most involved things I've done on Twitch in a long time, and it's because it involves so many guests. Just a lot going on. I think that Friday is going to be like a code party where there's going to be some giveaways. And we got some legit prizes, I think, coming up. It looks like we're going to be giving away, like, I can't tell you them all, but I know one of them is like a Surface. Nice. So it's like a legit stuff that people are getting on board with. That's probably, Christmas is going to be hopefully chill, to be honest. The rest of December, that's the first week of December. I'm hoping the rest of December is just chill streams where we, do some Vue or do some, something that's a little easier as we wind down the year. And then we'll kick off the new year.
And one of the things that you do on your stream that I really appreciate a lot is you donate a lot of the proceeds to various charities, or you want to maybe share a little bit?
One, actually, just one. Yeah, and we don't. So on Twitch, you can sub, right? And it's not like a YouTube sub. YouTube subs are free. On Twitch, if you sub to a channel, it costs you $5. You can also cheer. And streamers get money for those cheers. They get money for those subs, and then you can donate and they get that money as well. All those subs and cheers and donations on our channel, we donate every penny of it to an organization called Backpack Buddies. And Backpack Buddies feeds kids who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Like here in the US, like 1 in 5 kids don't know where their next meal is coming from. So a lot of times the schools here will feed the kids. A lot of times the schools here will send food home, like even on the evenings. But they don't feed the kids on the weekend. And that's exactly what Backpack Buddies addresses. They deliver food to the schools. They don't know who the kids are. The school counselors identify them. They deliver these bags on Friday. The bags get stuck in the kid's backpack. And the kid goes home with like 4,000 calories of food for the weekend. Plus like snacks. They provide them like gifts at Christmas and those kind of holidays. They give them toiletry bags a few times a year. So yeah, we have fed something like I know it's over 1,500 kids this year doing that. So it's a travesty that we have to think about that in the U.S. We're too wealthy of a nation for any kid to worry about where their food's going to come from. But I am also so proud of our community for tackling it head on.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. How about any resources? Do you have anything that you would point listeners to if they're wanting to get started with? We've talked about a lot of different things, whether it's TypeScript, Blazor, Vue, Docker. We've kind of mentioned. You mentioned we're developing from containers and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. What kind of resources might you call out for them?
Man, there's so many resources. I mean, I feel like we are like in the age of resources for all of this stuff. Now that everybody's offline and working from home, we all need those kind of resources. So, heck, YouTube is an amazing resource for all of those. To me, Vue, I learned Vue and I learned React by going through their docs. They had both of them. I think Vue's was a little nicer. That's personal preference. We all have different tastes there, but the Vue docs is a great resource for that. Was it Free Code Camp? Fantastic resource. There's a lot of Kent Dodds puts out some really good content. I think he's more in the React world. Wes Boss has got a great JavaScript like was it JavaScript 30 or 30 days of JavaScript or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but it's fantastic if you're wanting to learn just JavaScript. Which, as a matter of fact, if you wanted to learn like React, Vue, or Angular, I would say, hey, listen, good for you, champ. Go check out Wes Boss's 30 Days of JavaScript and just spend 30 days learning just JavaScript. I think you build something every single day. And then go tackle your framework, because a lot of times you'll get into those frameworks and you're like, hey, this Splice is amazing. I'm so glad that Vue has Splice and Split and Concat. And then you know, 5 years down the road, you're like, oh, wait, that's not Vue. That's just JavaScript. So that's really, I think that's a really good way to go. Is just spend a few days in that. Free Code Camp, like I said, is a great one. Certainly Twitch streams are a great resource. If you like that .NET life and that you're just determined to live it, then you live it. You're a strong, independent .NET developer, and you don't need no JavaScripter telling you how to live your life. Go check out some Twitch streams. Jeff Ritz on Twitch does a great job with that. And Microsoft is coming alive with it, with the, was it Microsoft Developer Channel and the Visual Studio Channel? They're putting out some really slick content around getting up. Jeff Ritz is doing a Getting Started with .NET, as a matter of fact. I think he's even putting it, or C#, and he's even putting it on YouTube. So if you want to get started with C#, you should definitely check that out, because he's putting out some really good content on that. I can do this all day.
All right. What has been helpful in your career that you might share with those just getting started or those looking to level up their careers?
I think this is the old man in me coming out. But looking back of like 20 years in software development, there was no resource. Clearly there was no conference or meetup, right, that affected me. 100% the most important thing that affected me as a developer are other people who either had confidence in me and gave me opportunities, or spoke life into me and built me up in some way. So I would say find you someone who does what you want to do and just get under their wing. And then also be that person for somebody else. If you aren't mentoring or encouraging someone every single day, you're missing an opportunity. Because I can tell you, I wrote an app one time for Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola has one of those like war rooms. Do you remember the movie War Room? Where like they have the big screens, like you see in the NASA movies, they have the screens everywhere. Coke has a war room like that, where they're monitoring production for Coke all the time, because apparently it's as big as walking on the moon. But I built an app in there, and it's on one of those screens, like 55 inches of this war room is this app I built. I got to tell you, when they turned that on, it was really rewarding, right? As a developer, you know how that is. When you write a program and a customer's using it and enjoying it, you're like, yes, I did it. I can tell you what, a month into streaming, someone reached out, and we had done a stream on Docker. And I was not a Docker pro. I was just doing the same thing. Let's learn together and figure this out. The guy sends me a message and says, man, thank you so much for what you're doing. I've always thought Docker was just kind of like out of reach, and you made it feel so approachable. I got to tell you that I felt that way more than I ever felt at release at Coke, that I had helped somebody in a positive way. And that's just kind of changed my career. I've gone from developer to, hey, how can I build up more people? A lot of people think like the bald-bearded builder, like the name or whatever. They're like, oh, he builds code. Okay, yeah, he's building stuff. He's a JavaScript and Vue and the .NETs and the anything but Blazor guy. But the truth is, the builder part of it for me comes from building up others. I think it's so important that we invest in people and make them the priority, because I got to tell you, especially in this time with COVID and everything going on, I think we're realizing how important it is to take care of ourselves. But I got to tell you, there is not I'm a typical developer who would like stay up all nights, grinding, you're up till 3 or 4 in the morning, you're back up at 8 or 9 in the morning, just grinding and grinding. Looking back, there is not a single line of code that was more important than my health, my family, my relationships with others. So I would just encourage anyone who's wanting to get in the field or is starting in the field, or whether you've been there, longer than I have, make that a priority. It matters. There's no, listen, if your boss comes to you and says, hey, we got to get this feature out, the company's going to go under if we can't release this on Friday. Spoiler alert, your company's going under regardless, and it's not because of that release. There are bigger problems at hand here. So take care of yourself more than anything, and invest in people. I think that's so important. Sorry.
Very cool.
Off the soapbox now.
No, it's excellent stuff. Where can our listeners go to follow you and sort of keep up with whatever you're working on?
So you can certainly hit me up on Twitch at twitch.tv/baldbeardedbuilder. I'm on Twitter at baldbeardbuild. You'd think there's a little branding at play. YouTube is bald. I'm Bald Bearded Builder everywhere except for Twitch, and there it's Bald Beard Build. Baldbeardedbuilder.com, all that jazz. Yeah, all of it.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Michael. This was a lot of fun. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it, guys.
That was Michael Jolley. With nearly 20 years of experience designing and developing software, Michael loves sharing his knowledge with others and watching them excel. You can catch his live coding sessions on Twitch and presenting talks at conferences and meetups.
If you like this episode, please like, rate, and review on iTunes.
Find show notes, blog posts, and more at sixfiguredev.com.
And be sure to catch us live each week on Twitch, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at sixfiguredev.
This has been another episode of the Six Figure Developer Podcast, helping others reach their potential. I am John Calloway.
I'm Clayton Hunt.
And I'm John Ash.
All right. And we're out except for Twitch.
We're
and
out, Twitch.
Your rating.
Peace. Keep it real.
I can cancel the raid. There, I've canceled the raid.
I mean, it's up
He
to you.
said that he was very accusatory there, wasn't he?
He did.
Your rating.
My goodness.
Well, it's last let me switch back.
I gotta ask, do you guys rehearse that ending?
No, we've just done it every time.
Every time.
This is the 170th episode. And we've done the are we rated? Did we rate?
Hey, yeah, you totally rated. You didn't think you were rating, but you did.
Well,
You said
you're
what?
very confusing.
I am very confused.